we're here in Putney to meet Bill, who's going to show us around his home. So we installed a ground source heat pump and 4 Tesla Powerwall 3s for Bill. So let's take a look and see how he's finding living with a heat pump.
Hello,
Hi Bill,
yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Come on in. So yeah, this is the lower ground, which we refurbished at the same time. And as you come through here, you will find what we call the plant room, which you managed to squeeze all the boxes into.
Aha.
Starting with the big one, which is obviously the heat pump, Stiebel Eltron. I think it's a 500-litre cylinder for hot water around the house. We've got 4 floors here, and I think we've probably 7 or 8 bedrooms. So yeah, that was spec'd so that we've got enough for any of our needs. And then if you can look around here, this is our buffer that we use for heating the house.
Yep.
And as part of installing, we did 3-phase electricity, which is obviously the heat pump needs, and this is the gateway to 4 Tesla Powerwalls, which you'll see in 2 seconds in the garage. Managed to get water softener at the same time, but it's pretty tight, but we managed to get it in here.
It is, it's a nicely packed plant room, it's beautiful. So Bill, why ground source?
Well, to be honest, I'm copying a neighbour up the road, and I saw the Elite van. I thought, if this is possible, I'm interested. You know, I'm a retired engineer, and I thought I'm just generally interested in how this would work and whether it would work in a property like this. So starting from a conversation with Martin, looked at the feasibility of doing it for a big Victorian property like this, and from doing the calculations, doing the room by room survey, it looked feasible. And so this is the culmination of probably 6 to 9 months work, and not only putting all the kit in, but tweaking it afterwards and configuring some of the internal plumbing afterwards. So the challenge we had is trying to get a heat source or ground source heat pump, which has got the capacity to do what is a 9-metre cube volume without cavity wall. Insulation, and because you don't really want to be putting insulation either on the outside of these walls or on the inside where you lose all the period features. It's spec'd to a point where I didn't commit to changing my radiators, although I have now put underfloor heating on 2 of the floors. It's spec'd so that you could just use existing plumbing, existing radiators, and I wanted to see how it was going to work at least for 1 winter, and it's been absolutely fine. So although because of another project I've now put underfloor heating on 2 of the floors, for the upper 2 floors it's fine using the existing radiators. You just adjust the flow temperature as best you can to meet the needs of how you're using it room by room. And phase 2 for me was looking at battery technology, and in particular what Tesla can do with their Powerwalls now, implementing the ability to buy the electricity I needed to run the heat pump and therefore the house and its heating overnight when obviously electricity is cheaper. Store it, you know, I pull it down between whatever it is, 11:30 p.m, 5:30 in the morning at about 7 pence a unit. Then I use it through the day, typically or mainly for the heat pump. That's the big user of it in this house, but obviously it feeds everything else. In the summer months I manage to store more than I'm using for all of the house needs, so then I can export it back to the grid probably about twice the price that I buy it, say 15 pence. During the winter, even with 54 kilowatt hours here, I still need more. Just with 4 Powerwalls, I decided that's the right level to make the efficiencies that I need for most of the year, and actually I'm net benefiter during the summer months, and then obviously there's a few points in deep midwinter where I'm using more power than I can store in these, and then I just buy it at 28 pence a unit or whatever it happens to be right now. But yeah, economically it makes good sense.
And have you run the numbers on the difference that having the Powerwalls makes to your overall heating bill?
I have, and I would say it's actually quite a difficult thing to pinpoint exactly, but I would say it's roughly halved. So my total energy bill pre, which was gas plus electricity, could have been up towards 5,000–6,000 a year, and I would say I'm running it under 3,000 year on year for a good sized house. The difference is, who's in the house at any point in time. If we got 6 people living here, 3 people living here, and when you track that year to year, it's difficult to make an absolute comparison, but I reckon it's about half. So having installed the heat pump, largely we were connecting it into the existing plumbing, existing heating system for the house. What you've got here are the radiators we chose to use in the ground floor, which have got, these are, 3 column here.
Yep.
It could have gone to 4 column, but this was just about enough for rooms of this volume, operating with the temperatures that we had coming out of the heat pump. I'll show you in 2 seconds, but on the upper floors, we've still got the original radiators, which are good enough. You're not going to get toasty, but for the way we live in the house, it's absolutely fine. In addition, on this floor and on the floor below, we've got underfloor heating as well.
Yep.
So actually, for this particular floor, I can use a combination of the 2, and I can feather them together. I've insulated the lower ground to a degree where underfloor is absolutely fine, and it works perfectly with the heat pump. And if I show you the upper floors just now, you'll see how it is possible to still use existing radiators.
Great stuff. And you You installed the underfloor heating here without pulling up any of this beautiful parquet flooring, didn't you?
I did. We can have a look from underneath if you want. Obviously, when you're installing underfloor as a from above, let's say, it makes it much easier. You can put your new floor covering down.
Yep.
Here we've got period features, parquet floor, which I didn't want to take up. And so what I managed to do, because I was renovating underneath, is having exposed all of the joists, I managed to feed underfloor pipes, 100 metre plus loops in from underneath. And it's working okay. It's good.
That's phenomenal. Oh yeah, very reminiscent of my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, nothing too exciting here. This is one of the radiators that were in the house when we bought it 20 years ago. It's a typical old 1970s, I guess, fin radiator. As I said earlier, I was experimenting by having installed a heat pump, just see what heat it would give living through the first winter, just using existing smaller probably 15 mil copper pipe throughout the house and these sort of radiators, and it's fine. I think if I was doing a full renovation on the whole house, I probably would put the same radiators as I've got below.
Yep.
Or if I was doing a bigger refurb, I'd probably put underfloor heating on all floors.
Right.
And actually my neighbour's done that throughout their house. But I think if you want to go that route, you probably need to double glaze all of your windows and maybe put some internal insulation on these non-cavity walls. But for the way we're set up here, it works fine.
And I was going to talk about the windows. Obviously, they're single glazed. There's no internal or external wall insulation, and no issues at all with heating the home or.
Look, I mean, I've put brush seal here, so you minimise all the ventilation, the draft, but it is single glazed, and they are quite big panes, so you do lose a lot. I mean, the Elite survey showed me how inefficient these Victorian properties are, as a fabric of the original house. So we're working with that, and part of me speccing with Elite what heat pump size we need was, I don't really want to have to change that. I bought a period property and I want to live in a period property. So although I have on the lower ground, I have modified the existing sashes to put double glazing in, I haven't up here, but it's still fine.
I think that's a really important message, because people think firstly, a lot of people think heat pumps don't work in older properties, and then secondly, they might think, well, to get a heat pump working in an older property, you're going to have to completely change it so as to lose all of its character. And I think here you've demonstrated that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah, you've probably seen, I've got a house of many parts, and actually floor by floor, we've come up with different solutions. One has got a combination of underfloor plus radiators. The new area is purely underfloor, very toasty. And up here, because actually it's bedroom space, it's not living space 24/7, we've come to a decision that, you can have slightly lower ambient temperature because you don't use it for the same amount of hours per day. So you can't really see how dramatic it was, but getting ground source pipe work into this front garden where we have 4 boreholes up to 200 metres depth, and 200 metres is quite some depth, required a huge drilling rig to get in here, which obviously Elite helps to orchestrate. You've got the main unit which takes the feed. It's actually one consecutive pipe, but it comes into a hub here and then just feeds into the heat pump just under that step there. Obviously, it requires a bit of rearrangement, but there's pipe work going everywhere. You can't see it because it's covered in gravel right now, but effectively requiring 7 to 8 metre separation. You've got a big borehole there, big borehole here, one just under the cameraman, and then 2 as you go down the sort of L shape towards the garage. And apart from the challenge of getting the drilling rig in, it's not loud when it happens, but it takes about a day to do each hole. You then just connect it all up, and it's relatively simple technology. When it's running, it's running. But yeah, I wouldn't underestimate, for somebody who's trying to do it, how much groundwork there is.
And there can be all sorts of problems. You can run into unexpected things. Doesn't matter how well you survey, always unexpected things happen with borehole drilling.
I did enjoy talking to the drillers as they were going down, because it's more of an art than a science. They choose a drill bit, but they can't predict what it's going to be like, probably below about 50 metres. Now you've got another 150 metres to go, so they choose a bore design that they think is going to go through the combination of shale and clay and sort of different strata.
And Bill, what has living with a heat pump been like? Have you had to change how you heat your home?
Good question. I think going into it, there's a lot of questions. You don't know how much is going to need configuring, how much you're going to have to watch it, but largely it's a set and forget process. A lot of conversations. Well, I started with talking to Martin right up front, which allowed me to understand how the technology was going to work for a house like this, so that was fine. Then we spent quite a lot of time with Mark specking out what size we need. By the time we got to installation and the heat pump went in first and we stitched it into existing plumbing, it was largely, it's putting out water at the right temperature for the house to use, and unless you're going to move the shape of your heat curve regularly, which nobody would recommend. You want it appropriate for the way your house runs. It's not really high intensity maintenance piece of kit, really.
Yeah.
I have tweaked it a bit. Having been through the first winter, I looked at what very cold temperatures outside would require me to do to adjust the bottom end of the heat curve. And I sort of worked out a bit how the Stiebel Eltron runs through its gears.
Yeah.
You know, it's got many gears, it's a sophisticated bit of kit. And having worked out that you don't want it stepping up and down through the gears too much, I made some subtle tweaks. But now we've been in the house with it using this heat pump system for 3.5 years. It is largely let it do its job.
You mentioned when we were out the front, the Boreholes is quite a project. How disruptive did you find the rest of the installation?
I thought you were going to talk about the Boreholes. The Boreholes is quite a piece. It looked like the Somme out there. You know, we had gantries going through cross pipes, and anyone visiting the house, you know, had to make sure they had a light with them so they didn't fall down stuff. But I think if you're trying to squeeze a big ground source installation into a property like this, you probably don't want to be living here, as we did. But internally, no drama at all. I mean, you've seen the plant room, where all of the external hardware stitches into what you're going to use for your internal plumbing, whether it's underfloor or existing radiators. From that point onwards, it didn't really have any impact on the internal part of the house.
Having been through this whole experience and lived with a heat pump now for 3.5 years, what would you say to somebody else who is considering it? Maybe they've got a property like this or a different type of property and they're thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure, is it really going to work?
Well, I guess the best way is to visit a house that has had it done and probably talk to the people who've lived with it for a few years. You know, many people that I know have come around and said, that's interesting, you know, and actually being an engineer, I'm friends with lots of other engineers and they're interested in the mechanics of it. But I think the practicalities of, you know, how's it going to feel is the easiest way to get comfortable with, is it right for me?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that once you've made the investment and you've got over the hurdle of getting it installed, you don't think about it.
Yeah, which is how it should be. You shouldn't think about your heating really, it should just be there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think from the financial point of view, if you were saying, what would you say to people? I think it's not a short-term investment unless you're thinking of installing it because you think the subsequent buyer of your property is going to put huge value in having the work done by somebody else. I had a 20-year horizon when I looked at this, and we'll probably stay here for more than 20 years. But around 15, 20 years, it makes perfect sense.
And when the heat pump needs to be replaced, obviously you won't have the cost of the boreholes and all the additional gubbins. It'll just be a replacement heat pump. So I guess the next 20 after that will be even faster payback period.
It's true, yes. I mean, putting the pipes in the garden was a big bit, and putting 3-phase electricity in, it shouldn't be underestimated. That took a bit of time. I also took the opportunity to put a larger gauge water supply in, so I had the right water pressure. So I did a few other things at the same time. None of that would apply when you're upgrading the heat pump, but I'm hoping, having invested in one which is German spec, German quality, it's going to run for a while. Yeah. So I'm not really thinking ahead to how dramatic it's going to be to change the heat pump. It's fairly simple technology, and I'm hoping whether it's new parts or just good maintenance, it'll run for a while.
Absolutely. If you're thinking about a heat pump, solar, battery, MVHR or air conditioning for your property, then contact us at Elite Renewables. You can give us a ring on 020 8706 0056, or you can contact us through our website at eliterenewables.co.uk. We make the process really simple, so we'll have an initial chat where we'll be able to give you a ballpark estimate for your project. We'll then send one of our technical team over to your property to visit you, to understand the property in a bit more detail, and to conduct a detailed survey so that we can give you an exact quote. Contact us by giving us a ring or dropping us an email through our website today.